You're listening to Infoverity's Trust Us podcast, where you can gear up for your data management journey with bite-sized discussions on industry trends and thought leadership. On each episode, we'll feature industry experts to help you navigate your path to mastering your enterprise data. Welcome to the Infoverity podcast, Trust Us. I'm your host, Jocelyn Biltgen, Associate Director at Infoverity. Joining me are my co-hosts, Taylor and Cal. Today, we also have a special guest from Databricks to talk to us about how to innovate with data. Mark Lee, Industry Ecosystems GTM Healthcare Life Sciences. So welcome, everyone.
Hey, folks. Nice to meet everybody in this case. Nice to meet you, Jocelyn. Nice to meet you, Taylor. Nice to meet you, Kalman.
Nice to meet you as well, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thank you very much.
Great. I think we are in for such an engaging discussion today. I hope our listeners will agree by the end of this episode. Let's get started with a few basic questions, Mark, to help our listeners orient themselves in this space. First and foremost, could you tell us a little bit about Databricks as a company, including what the platform does?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good introductory question. I think the way to really think about it is I think Databricks started as a company that was focused on something called Apache Spark. And now it's been, I would say, about 12 to 13 years since that particular start date, and we're so much more now. What we really see ourselves as a data intelligence platform. What we want to really work with our customers to really figure out is how we can take a lot of the big data of the world and really get insights from there. And when I say that, that's not a trivial process at all for anybody within the industry. It means how do we actually utilize different data sets, both structured and unstructured information, and how do we extract that data, put it into the state-of-the-art generative AI technologies we have today, and then really importantly, how do you harmonize that and provide useful content over to our consumers in order to make good actions?
So important, and I think such an industry-leading tool. We're so excited to talk about it. I think for even more context, with all of the tools that businesses are using in the enterprise data management space right now, I know differentiating among all of their different use cases can be really, really difficult. As a starting point, what does MDM mean in this space? And how does it lay the foundation for driving value?
That's a very excellent question. And I think that's a topic that's been of top of mind when it comes to getting insights from any particular data set. So master data management is the concept of taking in different data sources and then really creating single record copies off of that data. In other words, how do we basically curate group information together and unify that? We have all sorts of different names. Some people call it data harmonization as well. Over at Databricks, we understand that master data management is extremely important. In fact, we partner with many companies today in working specifically on master data management. And we also understand that when it comes to harmonizing that data set, this particular step is going to be essential towards working towards generative AI workloads. What I mean by that is if you really think about it, the old adage of garbage in, garbage out is especially true when your data is not clean and is not actually categorized and unified. With master data management technologies and the Databricks data intelligence platform, you can very importantly, one, categorize and get meaning out of your data, and two, feed that into your generative AI workloads. This is especially important in my particular field and segment, which is healthcare and life sciences, where we're working with a lot of PHI and PII information. In order to actually really utilize that PHI and PI information without violating federal regulations, we have to figure out how we can master that data, not just for accuracy, but we also need to figure out how we can actually mask that data in addition. When we talk about masking data, we're now talking about differential privacy. And this is where we see master data management moving forwards. When we think about master data management, we generally think I have a patient record A and a patient record B. It's the same patient record, but they belong to two different healthcare systems. How do I actually understand whether or not that they belong to the same patient? That's the first step. The second step is now that I have understanding of patient A and patient B being the exact same patient, how do I utilize data from that particular patient to actually have better patient outcomes for this particular healthcare need? And that means how do I actually abstract away certain details associated with that patient that would identify them specifically? I like to think of this as a very common example of if I have a patient whose name is John Smith today, and the question is whether or not John Smith has diabetes. If you really think about it from a full national scale within the US, there's a lot of John Smiths out there. There's a lot of John Smiths that are born on a certain day, and probably a lot of them also might have diabetes in this case. When we're building these particular models of mastering data and feeding into a generative AI workload, want to ensure that the reason why, let's say, a new patient, John Smith, is going to be diagnosed with diabetes is because of different medical attributes associated with them that have been abstracted away rather than because their name is John Smith. So the identifiable information is not influencing the actual decision.
100%. And I think expanding off of that, we know from experience that, taking time to master important data like member and provider domains is a heavy upfront investment. And I'm curious if you could elaborate on some of the use cases in the healthcare space that might be unlocked by that investment.
Ooh, that makes a whole lot of sense in this case. So when we think about the healthcare industry itself, there's definitely a lot of different concepts known as from the payer and provider space. From the provider space, it's about figuring out how we can actually provide a better quality of care to our patients in this case. How do we aggregate information across multiple different patients and identify which treatments are actually working the best, which particular recommendations we can actually make. From the payer side, one major topic we generally see is prior authorization. So given information from a lot of patients today, insurance claims they're going through, how can we actually figure out whether you can authorize a particular insurance claims or a visit before we actually go through with it? This is a major, major topic that we're experiencing today. And I would say utilizing Databricks' data intelligence platform technology, that's really where our customers are pushing us forwards. Now, we'll have a lot more announcements when you go into our Data AI Summit June 9th, June 12th, in which we'll showcase a lot of the different work we've done within the healthcare space from the payer and provider perspective. And we'll have a lot of information specifically in how we've been working on things like prior authorizations, ED optimizations, and very importantly, how we've been trying to better patient outcomes by partnering with a lot of the leading payer and providers of the industry today.
Thanks so much for those insights, Mark. Definitely interesting and helps our fellow, I guess, clients in the healthcare space understand the return on investment in some of these decisions to master these domains of data.
Certainly. Yeah. You're absolutely right. These can be really large investments, and understanding what the return on that investment will be is absolutely critical as businesses consider where, how, and when to make those investments. Following up with just a couple more questions from a foundational perspective, Mark, what do you believe is a true differentiator for Databricks in the analytics space? What sets it apart from other platforms?
That's a really good point. I think the way I kind of see it is that Databricks itself is built on a lot of open source technology. We're also one of the leading open source technology companies out there. We started building Apache Spark, which is the leading ETL platform. Then after that, we worked on building out machine learning workload techniques and parameterization using MLflow technology. Recently, we've open sourced a technology called Unity Catalog, which allows us to understand end-to-end governance off of different data sets, structured and unstructured information. Keynote over there, when you are utilizing some of the Unity Catalog, you're going to get something like master data management. We work with a lot of our partners today. Now, I think these differentiators are not just in terms of our DNA and how we've actually embraced really pushing industry forwards and open sourcing technologies while really building state-of-the-art, lowest total cost of ownership technologies as well. But I think it's our vision as a company and how we really want to drive this industry forward, how we want to interact with the industry itself. So one of the major shifts at Databricks is that we've now put more focus on the industry ecosystem itself. And that's part of my role in this case, to understand better how we can utilize our technologies like generative AI, how we can utilize our governance layer, our data lineage, how we can actually work across national boundaries in different regions of the world in order to very specifically deliver better patient outcomes.
It's truly a differentiated platform. And I think the final question that I'll ask relative to just making sure that our listeners have a good foundation before we start applying the theory of what we're talking about. And you've touched on this, Mark, but I'm going to ask the question in a more specific way and let you elaborate. How does Databricks lend confidence to customers today on how they process their data and how they get their insights?
That's an excellent question. And I would say that's a question that comes all the way back from 2013. So how do you get insights from big data itself? When we originally started as a company, we only really were concerned with things like data volume. So how much data was coming through, data velocity, how frequent was that data coming in, and then data variety, what kinds of data were coming in. Throughout that particular journey for our customers, we found that we needed to add another V to what we call the 3 Vs of data. It was data veracity. So what Databricks has done as well is that we've developed a lot of technology on our side to help you understand whether or not you can actually trust your data sets in the first place. The first one is by creating automated checks via platforms like Delta Live Tables and Expectations. The second part is being able to monitor data after using a technology like Lakehouse monitoring, which looks into things like data drifts, for machine learning models, model drifts, and label drifts. And then a third part about that is tying this all together using our unified governance layer of Unity Catalog, which not only is able to catalog your information today, so it tells you what particular data sets are available and provides descriptions associated with that, both on Databricks systems and not on Databricks systems by federation, but it also very importantly is able to provide lineage. So it can provide lineage and provenance of what particular data sets were generated from an upstream data source. We can trace the entire end-to-end workflow from data coming in, the rawest form of the data, all the way down to the inferencing from generative AI coming out. This really helps our customers today, and it's one of the major value propositions of Databricks, especially when we're talking about multi-agentic workflows, which is what a lot of our customers are moving to as well.
I think that's great. And I think that my hope is that that really provides clarity to our listeners on exactly what we're doing in that space. Now that we've talked through some of the theory of the MDM space, how Databricks plays into that space, and some of the considerations that our listeners should be thinking about if they're considering investing in this space, I'd like us to move into talking about how we can apply that. So practically speaking, what use cases can we talk about now? And for that, Cal, I'm going to turn it over to you.
For sure. So, Mark, we talked a little bit more about, what it takes to get your member and provider data in order if you're in the healthcare industry. But if you could maybe drill down to that next layer of detail in the use cases, maybe elaborate on some of the hot topics in the industry currently, like HEDIS metrics, quality of care, et cetera, that are tied to the overall patient journey and use cases here.
Yeah, that makes a very good point there. I would say HEDIS measures are a major aspect of what we're doing at Databricks. What we're trying to really figure out is working with the major payers and providers. So we're talking about very large integrated health delivery systems today within the US, as well as your standard healthcare providers and even your academic medical centers. We've been trying to figure out specifically how can we actually provide better data, improve the quality of data in order to improve the quality of care. Might sound really simple, but there are many components associated with that. And there's many upstream data systems that we have to work with from many different systems like EMRs and EHRs all pulling in. And what Databricks really works with our customers is how do we unify that information into a single platform we call the Lakehouse platform. So how do we take all these different data sets? How do we get that in more real time? And very importantly, how do we supply that over to our customers to be able to find better ways of actually delivering better patient outcomes in this case? So there's two parts off of that. One is how do we get better metrics for HEDIS? And two is how do we better understand the patient journey as well? And what I mean by that is how are we able to utilize devices like IoT devices that our patients are using today? How do you look at different hospital instrumentation that is available within the provider space? And also, how do you look at the entire patient's length and longitudinal path throughout their entire journey? Databricks is working with many major payers and providers today specifically on these particular outcomes, and we hope you guys stay tuned for Data AI Summit as we'll discuss more about that.
Great. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that for sure. The healthcare industry forum was one of my favorite topics at last year's summit, so definitely looking forward to that, and the many other healthcare topics that'll be on the docket for this year. I'm curious, maybe if you could touch on one more use case for us, differential privacy. We spoke a little bit about governance and how some of our most sensitive data might be some of the most valuable for understanding healthcare trends in general. And maybe you could speak about how Databricks helps in that specific use case.
Absolutely. So Databricks developed our Unity Catalog solution to very importantly provide different ways of viewing data. So we have full access controls off that. So your standard governance strategy. But we knew we had to go a step further. It wasn't as important as saying, let's say Cal is able to see this particular data set and Taylor is not able to see it. We also need to understand that there are cases in which perhaps Cal sees certain parts of that data set and Taylor sees a different version of that data set. How do we do that? So we have a lot of masking abilities within our Unity Catalog platform today. And also very importantly, we're partnering with a lot of folks who are developing state-of-the-art technology in order to very importantly mask information and deliver what we call demographical statistics associated with that information rather than delivering the identifiable data itself. What I mean by that, by all of this, is that there are many layers of differential privacy, and Databricks has been working with the leading providers of differential privacy today, such as major tokenization partners like Datavant, Protegrity, John Snow Labs, and Spindle Health to really importantly have a better understanding how we can mask and tokenize information, de-identify it for downstream use cases.
Awesome. Yeah, de-identification, classification, all of those topics are key for all of our current healthcare clients leveraging Databricks. So thanks for sharing a little bit more with the audience here.
So I want to go ahead and hop in, Mark, and ask a few questions that pertain to looking ahead. So top of mind for me, we talked a bunch about different trends across the healthcare and life sciences area and industry, but how is Databricks responding to those trends specifically with its product roadmap?
That is a really good question. I would say what we've been doing is think of us as having a two-part strategy associated with this. One is that our Databricks product team is specifically geared towards building abstract systems that work across all different industries. That means financial services, commercial media entertainment, healthcare and life sciences, as well as retail and media entertainment. So this is going to be very interesting because these particular ideas, these building blocks that we're building within Databricks actually very specifically can be used in any particular industry. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easily used, right? We have to figure out how we can actually really bundle these different services together to be something that actually our customers can use today. How can a hospital system actually use something like Databricks? Now, what we've been doing at Databricks is we've actually focused specifically on delivering those outcomes and solutions. So we pivoted our industry strategy towards understanding what the industry is looking for today. We have a concept known as outcome maps on our side, and we've been working with our customers, our partners, meaning our SIs, our ISVs, and our built-ons, to specifically figure out how we can satisfy different outcomes that our customers have been needing that have been industry-wide focus by utilizing a combination of Databricks technology and also these third-party integrations. How this influences our roadmap is this has actually enabled us to build a particular product that we have something called a data marketplace on our side that is able to integrate with a lot of different technologies out there. When folks think about data marketplaces, they generally think about data sets, the ability to have tabular information transferring back and forth. When Databricks thinks about data marketplaces, we think about data in terms of data assets that could be structured information, unstructured data like DICOM images coming from hospital systems today. We can work on tokenizing and de-identifying that with one of our major partners in order to provide that information over for a lot of downstream users. And we also speak about how to actually pass over machine learning models as well. So how we can provide a lot of these generative AI technology and tools that folks can utilize extensively using a combination of Databricks technology and other third-party systems.
That's a really interesting approach, Mark, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think that it sounds like there's a lot of upcoming things in the Databricks roadmap to be very excited about, regardless of the industry that you work in. Now, I have heard you plug this a couple of times, but I want to give you a space to tell us a little bit more about the upcoming Data and AI Summit.
Yeah, absolutely. So every year, Databricks hosts a specific summit called a Data and AI Summit or Data Plus AI Summit. If you come from the older days, it used to be called the Spark Summit. So we changed the name because as a company, we realized that we actually are doing a lot more than just ETL processing and just building data science models. We're actually working on the bleeding edge and the forefront of technology to figure out how we can integrate different AI-based workloads and concepts into your everyday life. So what we've been doing at the Data AI Summit is we hold an annual conference in San Francisco. It'll be June 9th through June 12th. And we're going to work with a lot of the leading industry companies today in order to talk about how they've been leveraging Databricks in order to really further their own bottom line and also work with their actual customers. There'll be major, major announcements. I think I can tell you folks that Jamie Dimon will actually be speaking at our Data AI Summit this year from JP Morgan, and he'll be discussing a bit about what we've been doing with JP Morgan Chase and also how we can actually really benefit from building out a startup culture in this case by combining a lot of venture capital funding over with a lot of these smaller startups, including these healthcare and life sciences startups. Please come attend it. It's in the Moscone Center in San Francisco, June 9th through June 12th.
Great. I know we're looking forward very much to attending, interacting with our Databricks colleagues, and as well as our many clients who are going to be attending this year.
It's going to be a great event. So, I hope that what our listeners walk away from today with is a good understanding of master data management and how Databricks fits into that picture, a good understanding of what Databricks does as a tool, how Databricks applies to really relevant industry use cases, some trends that we're seeing in the industry, and how the Databricks roadmap is responding to that. And of course, a great time for us to connect in the near future. Mark, the last question that I have for you is, what have we missed? What else would you like to tell our listeners about?
That's an excellent question. There's a huge amount of things going through my head, honestly, and lots of topics. And there's so many things that we have to really work on to really better the industry itself. I would say of the number of industry outcomes we have about at least 18 major sub outcomes that we work with our customers today to really achieve. I would say if there's anything I could really leave our customers with today, it is to really focus on how they can utilize their data sets today, their data assets, and see what kind of better patient outcomes they can actually draw out of it. Now, that could be utilizing classical machine learning, that could be using simple analytic techniques, that could be using generative AI technologies. And I think I'm really curious as to how folks are really going to use this technology to really figure out how they can drive us into the next phase of healthcare and life sciences. Now, some of this will be explained at Data AI Summit, by the way. So you see what the customers are. If you're a little bit low on ideas, you can go there and see what other customers are actually doing today. Oh, in addition, I'll be giving a talk with Komodo Health at the Data AI Summit, specifically on how we can leverage more data intelligence in conjunction with our ISV partners. So please attend.
We'll definitely look forward to that. This has been great. Mark, we so appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that everyone is inspired, and we hope that everyone is inspired to stop by at the event next week. Thank you so much. Look forward to continued discussions. That's it for this episode of Trust Us. We'll catch you next time. For more than a decade, Infoverity has been established as an industry-leading consultancy specializing in solving enterprise data management business problems with best-in-class technical solutions. Our firm has consultants located around the globe with headquarters in Columbus, Ohio and Valencia, Spain. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, please visit our website at infoverity.com. We've also included additional contact information in the show notes.